Right, my name's Henry Dorr, and I'll be talking about the role of media in Unit 12. My chosen sport is rugby, so I'm going to talk about how the media has influenced rugby. So, to start with, what is the media? The media is a tool by which the information is passed on to their audience. They are the medium of how the information is passed from obviously the sport to the spectators, or whoever's interested in that sport. It's not just the spectators in the stadium, it's who wants to watch it on TV or who wants to, look at it in their spare time. Obviously, there are many forms of media. We're looking at newspapers, TV, radio, internet. So we got, chat rooms, the Facebook pages, the social networking. So we got Twitter, Facebook. I'm not sure if they do sport on Instagram, but maybe. But obviously they have a wide range of different forms of the media in order to hit a large target audience, which they wouldn't be able to reach in the past. So obviously the whole reason the media is their purpose is to entertain and to inform their audiences. And the media, chooses what they want their audience to see. So obviously, at the end of the day, we as the customer wants to get entertained. We don't want to listen to boring stuff. So they have to pick the right stuff to make it interesting. So that we're gonna buy their services and look at it and things like that. And obviously, from their perspective, the whole reason they are there is to make a lot amount of money. That's the whole role of the media. Well, that's the whole reason why the media is there. They want to make a lot of money alongside it. So obviously, the biggest influence that media has, in my view, is the money. It creates a huge amount of income for the sport because one, it's the TV deals and things like that, and that creates a lot of money in itself. Just look at how the Six Nations have gone and how BBC and ITV have had to compete with each other and pay a lot of money just to split the games up. So ITV's paid a little bit more because they've got a few more games, but the BBC is starting to kind of come out of sport now because it's so expensive to buy the TV rights. And obviously this is great for the sport because obviously that money means development. They can invest it back into the grassroots levels of the sport and enable more players to become professional, because if there's more money within the sport, they're able to make it much bigger, create more clubs, form more leagues if they have more money. So obviously that's a great advantage as to why the media is here. The media also plays a vital role in the sponsorship deals for the sport. Because if the sport wasn't well known, there wouldn't be any sponsors for it, because the sponsors want, they want to gain something from it, which is customers, which is money. And obviously if they advertise their products during a rugby match, then more people are likely to get it than if they weren't advertised. And that again creates a large amount of money. I think sponsorships do create more money than the TV deals, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But I would assume so, because there's a large amount of sponsors. The biggest role that it has is obviously influencing the audience. I say the biggest role, obviously money was the first, but they obviously play a really important role in influencing people's opinion and perspective of the sport. And obviously reputation is really important for any sport. And the media has that make or break as to, because they can choose what stuff they put out. So they can put out the bad stuff, or they can sweep it under the carpet and not tell people and keep the reputation of the sport quite clean. In rugby's case, there has been quite a problem with the drugs problem, wide-scale drugs. But obviously, the media has picked up on it, and they picked up on it on online articles and newspapers have picked up on it. Not so much on the TV, and obviously more people watch TV than they do really read a newspaper or something like that. So at the minute, rugby's perception isn't as tainted as what it could have been if the media chose to put it out, which is quite weird to think, because they have quite a lot of control on that front of the reputation of the sport. Because if if we take athletics for example, which is getting hammered by the media for all the cheating and the doping that's going on, it doesn't look like one of the best sports to join at the minute, because obviously all the problems that are going on. Whereas with rugby, they've obviously kept that drugs issue kind of under the carpet. I mean, that could be argued that rugby is actually the governing bodies are tackling the problem straight away and investing into anti-doping technology, and working with anti-doping agencies to kind of reduce this problem, which has been recent since they say it's been recent. 1995 is said when they first started occurring, which is when it turned professional. I mean, the other big influence that media has is that because it has a wide access to a high number of people, because more people watch sport than they do play it, let's face it, by having that audience, there is a lot of income generated for the sport, because there's a lot of money, a lot of consumerism. I mean, the Rugby World Cup 2015, 120 million people watched that event worldwide, and that shows how much the media can globalise the sport, and with that globalisation comes a lot of money, comes a lot of publicity, which is really good. I mean, the World Cup was great publicity. There was no negative stuff about it. Really smooth, really well. I mean, it was probably one of the best events, and I think it was the third most watched event. Something behind like Olympics and FIFA World Cup, something like that. But anyway, the point being is that the media's had a massive role on how it can show other people about the sport, and obviously by showing them, by viewers, watching the sport, it will increase participation, because people will see that and think, oh yeah, I quite like that aggressive, that aggressive nature, or my mate's watching it, so I think maybe we should both join and start together. And that's really good. That's a really good thing for the media. So you get more people into the grassroots of the sport, not just by the money, not just by the sponsorship or the TV deals. They actually get the people sitting at home watching the rugby and think, yeah, maybe I'll give that a shot because it looks good fun too. And that does happen. It happens quite a lot. And that's a great thing which the media has done for the sport. And obviously, when they have more participants in rugby, they actually get more funding. So it's kind of like a two-way thing, If you get money, you get the participants. Then if you get the participants, you get the money. So it's kind of like that ongoing stage going up and up and up. I mean, the media doesn't just influence the viewers. It influences the viewers into increasing participation and money. It also can have an impact on the sport itself, on the rules of the game. I mean, the biggest influence that the media has had has definitely been, in my opinion, the television match official. And obviously, by developing that technology, one, because the media wanted it, because I think they like the fact that they can sensationalise the fact that the TMO, they can, the best thing about it is that they hype it up, so they can use it in the event, so when you think there's a try being scored, by having that technology there, the media can create that tension, that atmosphere of the game, and that's what, ultimately, at the end of the day, everyone watching it wants. They want to be entertained, and by creating that atmosphere, from using that TMO and using that technology, it had a huge influence on how the atmosphere is created within the sport. I think, in my opinion, the TMO is good. I think it's quite cool to see it all building up and replaying it over. I mean, it has recently been criticised that there is too much use of the TMO, because obviously sometimes they just replay it a bit too much, and I think the media sometimes criticises and says they use it too much. They should make their own decisions because it stops the flow of play, which is fair enough. They're all entitled to their own opinions, but there's no point slanting it when at the end of the day the TMO actually helps the media create that entertainment feature, which is key to keeping their audiences. Because if it was boring, no one would watch it. So by having that TMO, I think, is good for the media, as they can hype it up. Maybe not so much for the newspaper or online articles and things like that. It's not the easiest thing to create that coolness and sensation of watching it go in slow mo and hitting the try just as people jump on them and things like that. but it definitely has an influence on the TV side of how the media plays a role. The media also has an influence on how people behave within the sport. Obviously, there was the Bloodgate, which was obviously the cheating where the guy bit on the blood capsule, and they saw him smile as he's walking off the pitch, and then they caught him, and all went up in flames, and everyone was like, "Oh, they're cheating," and that does have a massive impact on the sport negatively. Sponsors don't want to be seen with bad publicity. They want the good publicity, so people think, yeah, I'll go for that product because of association. Association is key within sponsorship, within media, and within the sport. If the sport's not associated with good things, with good behaviour, with good players, then obviously, in turn, they'll lose the sponsors and the media at the end of the day, because people don't really want to watch cheaters. Everyone likes fair game. They've also had an influence on the behaviour of the sport. So obviously, I just said the Bloodgate, on how they don't like the cheating. Obviously, the drugs that you use as steroids for the players to get bigger and stronger and faster. That's been influenced, and the media is criticising the players which have taken the drugs. That is a bad thing to do. That isn't the game of rugby. The whole point of rugby is sportsmanship. You play the game fair. You play it how you're meant to play it, not how you want to play it and how you want to be. Maybe taking steroids doesn't have a massive effect on the game like it does in cycling. If they don't in cycling, then it has a huge impact, because obviously everything's measured by milliseconds. With rugby, it's not so much, but there's still that sense of not playing fair game, which I don't like about it, and I think the media doesn't like about it, which they're trying to get rid of. It's also had not just a negative influence on the sport from the behaviour point of view. It's also had a good impact, such as how rugby now responds to concussion. I think through the use of media, the media's highlighted the importance of treating concussion as a serious issue, rather than it kind of getting fobbed off and just said, "Oh, you'll be alright, get your head off and go," or just give them a couple of days and they'll be alright and they can play again, when actually it's a bit bigger than that. And the media has had a great impact on how concussion should be treated within the sport. They formed new medical regulations so that the players themselves are safe, and that they can reduce the effects of playing rugby. And there's always the chance of getting concussion or getting injured, but that's like with any sport. I mean, you probably get injured more in football than you do in rugby. That's just a weird thing to think about. I think people think rugby is quite aggressive, but actually it's quite safe compared to some other sports. I mean, media at heart still has its problems with the imbalance in rugby, because obviously rugby has that kind of stigma attached to it that it has to, that it's a man's sport, that it's a gentleman's sport, and that only guys can play it due to its aggressive nature. So the media is a bit behind on the fact of, if we're talking gender equality, they are a bit below it. The girls are right down here and the guys are right up here. On the terms of coverage, the women get very minimal amount. And that's a shame, really, because I've watched some footage of women's rugby and it looks just as good as men's. But clearly, obviously, if it doesn't attract a large amount of people, it won't attract a large amount of money, and it won't attract a large amount of sponsors. So therefore, they just leave it and they don't bother touching it. Obviously, the DCMS, from the government's point of view, has tried to increase that kind of amount of media coverage for women's rugby, women's sport in general. But there's still a long way to go to actually get them equal. I don't know if that would ever be possible, really, because I don't know. It's always been the way the media have been. It's always been the men first, the men from the media perspective, because apparently it's so much more entertaining. And I mean, the most coverage that has been known from women's rugby is when that rugby girl died, the rugby player died, Sarah Chester, who died as a result of concussion, actually. And obviously, that's not the best of media to be known for. And by having that kind of bad kind of bad publicity, it kind of like shows that the dangerous side of the sport, even though it is actually quite low. It will put off, especially women, girls that are thinking of playing rugby. It will definitely make them think twice, which is probably had a knock on their participation levels, because people speculate and sometimes get the wrong idea, and then they think, oh no, it's a bit too dangerous, I'm not going to play it. Could the media have not made it as big? I don't know, because maybe they should just advertise the good stuff rather than all the bad stuff, because I know the bad stuff always gets bad stuff always gets the most views, because everyone wants to look at the bad for some reason. But that's the way it goes, and unfortunately that's had a knock onto women's rugby, and how it's perceived by the general public due to the influence of the media, which is a bit of a negative for women's rugby, and I bet it's had a bit of a knock on. But yeah, overall the media has a huge, is very critical, and has a large impact on the sport itself. Money, all comes down to money in the end. Everything's about money, and the media creates massive amounts of money, gives the sport massive amount of money through TV deals, or TV rights, and then obviously the sponsorship comes alongside that, because the media and the sponsorship kind of work together. It's a bit of not a partnership, but obviously the sponsorship, or the sponsors want the media, and then the media wants the sponsors because they get money, and then the sport wants both because they get money. The media has a great influence also on participation, as the more viewing figures they will get, the more likely people are going to participate within the sport, which is good for obviously participation. Oh, I can't say it now. Right, participant levels. There we go, participant levels. Which is obviously another good thing, and also, as long as the media does it in the right way, it can create a good reputation for the sport. But that gives ultimately the media a lot of power, which can be argued as a good or a bad thing. I mean, power. You could talk about power for ages, really. The media has a lot of power on the sport, whether to make it or break it, and they can, either help gain more sponsors or lose more sponsors, depending on how they act. How that relationship works behind the scenes is something to think about. Maybe you got a few backhanders, which I'm sure always happens. But at the end of the day, the media is good for money, and it's good for maintaining a good public face, as long as the controversial issues are dealt with at speed, and so that the media don't uprise to it and challenge the sport. And obviously, the third reason is that it brings in a large number of participants to the sport, which is great, because sport is great fun, especially when you're doing it with people you like. So obviously now the media is just playing a massive role in the Six Nations, so you'll probably see that coming soon, and hopefully it'll be as big a success as the World Cup, which I'm sure it will be. So my name's Henry Dorr, and I've just done a talk on the influence of media.